Thanks for attending today's webinar, 9 Secrets to Killer Content for Your Association Website. We appreciate you taking time out of your day today to spend with us. Some quick housekeeping. Now, we're covering 9 items in 30 minutes. So some topics will be covered fairly quickly and others we'll take some time on. A few have some real meat to them, so we'll spend some time on those for sure. Keep in mind also that while some of these or one of these secrets might seem obvious to you, it might not be so to the next person on the line. We've sort of formulated these based on our experience building websites for associations for many years and know that these definitely apply to most folks. And as we'll discuss, sometimes it's the basic things that we take for granted and don't address the way we should sometimes. Also want to mention there is a Q&A button on the call for you. So if you'd like to ask a question in that area, you definitely can. Due to the duration of the call, I'm not sure if I'll get to all of them. If I don't or get to any of them, I'll definitely respond back in writing to everyone so we all have answers to the questions that were asked. And since it is a short webinar, and I hope you enjoy this shorter format, I'd love to hear feedback from you after on how you felt about it. We'd like to provide you with some more information, some in-depth resources on each of these topics covered. And also, as it says here, we will have a recording that we'll share with you after the fact via email. But the way the handout's going to look, there'll be a link at the end on the last slide. And you'll get not only the slide, but you'll get the text underneath of it that's basically what I'm, complementary to what I'm saying now. And we've also added some links to some additional resources that complement each topic. So look forward to that as a complement to this webinar. So let's jump right in. Is content still king? Well, the answer to that is yes, if, and it's a big yes, if. If you make your content engaging and relevant and timely and meaningful, and I could go on, this webinar is sort of building a case for the fact that content is still king, and it's also giving you some practical tools to get the content right on your association website. And the big assumption, so the big assumption today, just to frame up the webinar, is that we're not talking about content like you had a new hire and you put a press release together and that's on the website. Not that you shouldn't do that, you definitely should. Posting a schedule for an event that's 3 months from now. That's content, but that's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is that you guys, as association professionals, whether you're in membership, marketing, communications, IT, executive director, whatever it is that you are, you want to create content that invokes something, right? Action, emotion, awareness. And that's what we're here to talk about today, how you can leverage your content, new and existing, to create increased membership or authority in your industry, just to name a couple things. Okay, and we're talking about things like reports, download, blog posts, things that are shareable, even evergreen content. Okay, and what do these things need to be? They need to be on the mark. What does that mean? Well, timely, contextual. There's a bunch of words that describe that. Lovable, buzzworthy, and actionable when possible. So let's jump right in. Number one, know your audience. Why? Well, staff and board don't represent actual users as much as sometimes we like to think that we do. So it's important not to get caught up in the people use the web like me trap. Okay, we see that happens a lot. How do we solve for that? Well, we'll talk about that in just a moment. Non-members and members have the same needs. We seem to have this fear that we must hold back some content from members, otherwise we'll have a hard time showing member value, right? The trick, though, is, and we'll touch on this a bit more later as well, is to show that you are the go-to source and authority in your industry. And number 3, not all content is for everyone. It's not for everyone, and we need to discern the difference. So we'll be talking about that as well. And just to make a point here, too, as far as, hey, well, this is, audience, we get that, Chris. Not a big secret. Well, again, back to my original point, this is an article from Forbes.com, actually from this week of all things. Top 10 rookie mistakes digital marketers make. Number 1, you don't know your target audience. Okay, so again, this is really critical. It's why it's number 1, and it's probably why it's number 1 on this list as well, is because it is critical to getting content right. So a quick word about the format of the webinar. Each topic is going to have a why slide, like we said before, and then a slide like this saying, how do you do that? Well, you do it like this, okay? If you don't have personas and scenarios for site users, you should definitely consider them. It's something we do for each redesign, and they serve as a great ongoing management tool as well. We'll show you an example in just a moment. It doesn't have to be for a redesign. You can start thinking about these folks now in the middle of a website that may exist. Offer more to non-members and the public. Non-members, while seemingly more maybe like prospects to you, or maybe even not as deserving, so to speak, of all the good content, well, they're still trying to solve the same problems your members are trying to solve, aren't they? So your question is, do you surface more information to the public? Might it help your search engine optimization? Hint, yes. And your authority in the industry by sharing what you know. Could you be the website that just keeps coming up whenever people search on industry terms? That'd be a nice place to be, wouldn't it? But if you hide content behind a login, this objective just becomes very difficult to achieve. So think about this. What if non-members shared awesome, helpful information with each other? They would become more aware of your organization, respect your organization, and that's really what people join at the end of the day. It's not because they're dying to see that PDF right behind the login. People want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, especially in their industry. And as we said, not all content is equal, and we'll talk more about that shortly. But it's important what you send and to whom. So here's an example of a persona and scenario. If you haven't seen one of these before, this is what there are. You created a real life, it's fictitious, but a real life profile of the person and the types of lifestyle they have and how they might be used in your website. And that also helps down the road when you say, should this content be published on our site? The question becomes, does it speak to any of our personas? So we're moving along to number 10, which is do less. Well, why? You might have fewer than 10 seconds to make an impression. 10 seconds to a minute's a long time. You could have fewer than 10 seconds to make an impression, so do less, right? White space helps dramatically here. The web is full of good enough information. Most information is good enough for people. People scan the web, right? And ultimately, they just want to be satisfied. I'll say it again for those that haven't heard that term before. Satisfied. It's satisfied and sufficed, right? They're like, yeah, I'm fairly satisfied and this suffices for what I need. I'm satisfied. I'm good. It's good enough. I'm moving on. Okay, so they're gleaning the big ideas. So make it easy for them to grab those. And interaction cost, what is that? It's how much physical, psychological, and emotional drain there is on the user's experience. When someone is lost online due to cluttered content, bad design, these pains can kick in and people may not return to your site. For an example site, speaking of cluttered, if your association website looks anything like this, you want to listen closely to this do less portion of the presentation here today. So how do you do less? Well, you got to get your copy right. There's a rule of thumb that says that after you've written your copy, it's probably too much, so cut it in half. And then take that and cut it in half. And maybe take that amount of copy and cut that in half too. And then you're probably good for the web. Okay, high quality content. It doesn't have to be long and deep, although that there is a place for that as well. But it needs to be quality. It needs to be of value. And then follow conventions. Know how people anticipate finding things on your website. Right? Don't get crazy. Follow today's usability conventions. So let's look a little bit at some folks that do less. This is charitywater.org. If you go to that website now, this is what it will look like. And this is pretty specific. It's nicely branded. It's got a modern design. It's got links across the top that will allow you to do things and find more information. But they're doing one thing right now at this point, aren't they? They're saying, join the monthly giving program. How much can you do? I'm going to go ahead and say 60 sounds good. Why don't you start there or change that? Okay. Or you can just donate once if you like. But this is our crusade, and this is what we're trying to do. Am I suggesting this is what your website looks like? Not necessarily, okay? But the point is they know, right? And they're doing less, not more, to achieve what we'll talk about later as conversions. And you can think about Google too. I mean, they've bought so many companies, have so many things going on in their organization, yet Google.com is still just a search box. Imagine the conversations. We spent $9 billion on this and it doesn't get any room on our homepage, right? Aren't those the kind of conversations we have in our organization? Wait a minute, this is my advocacy program. It's got to go on the homepage or whatever it might be. And that could be a very important point. I'm not trying to diminish those points. Those could be very well and good points, but how can we do everything for everyone? We can't, okay? I want to think about doing less. And let's talk about how that relates to copywriting. Here is the form. I'll just give you 10 quick seconds here to read through this, but this would be copy that might be at the top of a survey that you're asking your members to fill out. Okay, so what do we have here? Well, let's break this down a little bit. Up here, we've got some happy talk, right? So it's just kind of stating what more or less is the obvious. As we break this down further, these are instructions that if we've ever filled out a survey before, we probably know. And down here, we're asking for a few things, telling about a few things, etc. Okay. It's very common to feel like, well, wait a minute, you don't understand our members. We have to explain everything to them or they'll call headquarters, right? And ask how to fill out this form. I get it. But also, are you not potentially alienating people that are frustrated by the way this is clunky and overwritten? And maybe you're losing those people that you'll never hear about. So, and sometimes providing extra copy can be more confusing. I'm following all the instructions you laid out here, okay? So we would say, do less. There's a book that we'll reference in the handout by a guy named Steve Krug. It's a book that's been around for a while, but it's called Don't Make Me Think. And that's the point, right? And it's all about web usability, and highly recommend, if you're not familiar or haven't read that book, to check it out. But really, isn't this all we need? You can help us greatly by taking 2 minutes and giving us your opinion below. Hey, do you need some help? That's fine. We have a whole customer service page or an email that we can connect you with. So we've taken that massive piece of copy and really broken it down to this. And isn't it awesome when you go to a website and you do see something that sort of gives you credit for understanding how it works, and you can just jump right in without the big, bold, paragraph of information at the top. And here's just a model by which you can go as well. So is there a place to have 1,000-page documents and web pages? Absolutely, there is. But it should be deeper. The people should ask to go there on your website. They should have to click through. It shouldn't be your homepage. It should be a few clicks down when they know that that's what they're looking for. So search engines like longer bits of copy, longer blog posts as well. So there is a place for it, but it's how it evolves into this hierarchy. Okay. So now, number 3, more imagery. So I just said do less, and now I'm saying do more. Well, why? Well, imagery is critical today. These are just some mind-blowing stats, and in the handout, we'll send you the reference as to where we got these stats from. Colored visuals increase people's willingness to read a piece of content by 80%. I mean, that's significant. With relevant images, gets more views, 94%, than content without relevant images. Okay, this is pretty much selling itself at this point as to why imagery is so critical. And as we are users of the web, we see this every single day, don't we? So how do we do this? Well, when we build websites for folks, this is for associations specifically, this is what we want to achieve. We want the user to come to that new site and go, oh my gosh, you knew I was coming. Thank you so much, because now I'm just going to follow this path of what I wanted to do, and you've just led me right down. Okay, so how can imagery become a part of that? Hey, you knew I was coming. Okay, use actual people and things, not stock imagery. Go beyond just complementing text on a page with an image like a magazine does. Think about more creative ways to use your images. And you have to know the ins and outs of image best practices. Do you have a CMS tool? Are there editing capabilities within your CMS tool? What about the resolution of the image? Is it massive? Is that a 5 gig image that you're trying to put on your site, then you wonder why the homepage is slow? You need to know about these things. Illustrations, JPEGs, vector versus bitmap, PNG files, icons, right? If some of these terms aren't resonating with you and you're ahead of imagery, you should look at those. Or talk to a graphic designer or get a graphic designer involved. It's definitely worth the investment as it stands with today's image-heavy web. So here's STTI, the Honor Society for Nursing, and look what they've done here. Recently launched site. So yeah, they got the imagery down, and this is definitely not stock imagery. These are people that they know. And then underneath, it's inspiring member stories with more pictures. Again, you knew I was coming. I feel like I know these people. I might literally know these people. Okay, so I know I've come to the right place, right? And then infographics. Again, this is a great use of imagery. It helps folks discern and take in information instead of a big long paragraph or two. You break it down, especially the one on the right here. This is thousands of examples, but the one on the right here, you can see the big red, headlines here. I can just scan this and be satisfied. So we move forward to number 4, kill content. Okay, so now you're saying kill the killer content. Make killer content, then kill it, sort of. Okay. The first two are sort of obvious, right? And hopefully we're taking this into consideration when we're creating content for our site. But it also forces the right questions. We're going to talk about them in just a moment. Well, how do you kill content? Well, you can check traffic reports. If you have Google Analytics, see what's working, see what isn't. Ask around at the next event. Ask, what do you love about our site? What content do you always go to? Maybe analytics isn't going to pick up what 1 or 2 people tend to see and like. So getting that anecdotal information is great. Perform regular site audits, whether they're automated inventory crawls or you just choose the one section, the events or the conference section, and audit it regularly. Is there stuff out there from 7 years ago that you just really don't need? Very critical. Okay, ask why, when, and who before posting, especially when. Okay, and as a bonus, number 4, you can set content to unpublish. Okay, so the question becomes when you're adding content to your site, what's the shelf life? What should the shelf life be? Your CMS should be able to say publish on this date and unpublish on that date. Okay, now we've alleviated the idea of having to prune and inventory stuff later because everything's coming off when it should. Okay, but it also makes us think every single time about the shelf life of this content. Number 5, think conversion. Okay, we try to build user-centric websites. That's what we all want to do, but in the reality, there's an overlay of what the organization needs, right? We need people to sign up for the event. We need people to join and renew. So how do we balance that? How do we create engaging content? How do we create authority that people want to renew because this content is awesome, it's killer? Okay, and there's more than one kind of conversion. So we want our content, it doesn't always have to, but again, another question to be asking, what action can be taken against this content? Here's some examples of conversions. A transaction of some kind, financial transaction, a download, a submitting a form, or reading an article is a transaction as well, okay? And if you want to get really, geeked out on conversions, there's micro and macro conversions. So think about this too, like Amazon, in the book section of Amazon.com, the macro conversion is buy a book. But what's the micro conversions? Well, how about leave a read, a review? How about click on the author page? How about read inside this book? Okay. And the users want to have a clear understanding, talking to number 3, of where you want them to go on your site. There are paths that we want folks to take. Okay, so how do we do something like that? You must know the path by which a user should take and then guide them through it, okay? Are those visual cues to say, are they text cues? Step 1, step 2, step 3, download now? Are they arrows? Okay. Google Analytics can actually track these paths. So again, another question about our content. How do they get to it? What are the 3 clicks, 2 clicks, 7 clicks? What are they to get to this content? I should know that, and I should program that into Google Analytics so then I can track how many people got there successfully, and why did 10 people out of 12 bail out on page or click number 3 and not get to click number 4? Let's go look at that page and determine what went wrong. Oh, the button's not very big. In fact, there's no button at all. Okay, these are the kind of things that allow us these conversion points and to be able to track them. Okay. And again, as we said before, keep it simple. Don't overwhelm. Don't get too fancy with your conversions. Everything doesn't have to, if you like this, then you love that, then you should go here, and we've got an education here and a book here. That can confuse the issue. If you want someone to buy a book, show them the book, right? So right, number 6, make it multi-purpose. Make your content multi-purpose. Well, we'll get into this more, but the channel that content is going over matters. Is this something on Twitter that you're linking to? Facebook? Is it something people might find through one of those long pages we talked about because your search engine optimization is so high? What's the channel people are accessing this from? And it should be different across channels, okay? If you make it multi-purpose and are specific to a user and how they want to take this in, you're going to get improved user acceptance and engagement, right? In context, that's a big part of what we'll talk about today. But context matters. What kind of content is delivered within each context, okay? So how do we make it multi-purpose? Well, creatively convert. Can we turn that report, that boring, dull 3-page report, can we add an infographic to it to complement it for the folks that just want to be satisfied? When it comes to something like Twitter, like I said, are we just saying on Facebook and Twitter, and I'm just using these as simple examples, hey, come check out this, and here's the link. Just posted this. Well, okay, that's broadcasting. But how can we be more engaging? Well, just use Twitter as an example. If you have a piece of content that maybe is open-ended or maybe thought-provoking or maybe very important to your organization's stance in the industry or about some legislation, instead of saying, check out our latest stance, well, I get a lot of that in my Twitter feed, right? But how about this? How about asking some provocative question? And provocative doesn't have to have a negative connotation to it. Or stating some deep thought about this in the tweet, and then having the link. And you don't even have to say what the link is about, but people see the link and they're engaged on Twitter. And also, did you know imagery on Twitter increases engagement by, I think, 150% for tweets? Throw back to more imagery. But again, how you present things across these channels matter. And if you make it timely and relevant for the user, as we said, engagement increases. So let's think outside the box a little. Okay, could we send half the information or post half of it now and half later? Could we just have a teaser? Does it all have to go out today? There's infinite possibilities, right? It just takes a little thought work. And these are, again, more questions that we're asking about our content. So consider these, for example, as you're posting your content. Would you rather somebody read something or download it? Well, maybe you want them to read it, but maybe download's better. Would you want them to hit the back button now that they're done or the share button now that they're done? Are you just going to post something or are you going to curate? Are you going to go around and get the best of the best and share that instead of just one angle on one topic? We talked about visuals. Are you answering or asking? Well, people could say, wait a minute, shouldn't it be the other way around? We should be answering to be the authority. You said we should be the authority. Sure, we could switch those around, but also imagine this engagement. Posting something on your site that, again, is open-ended or topical and allowing people to comment on it. I know some people cringe and go, oh, yeah, they'll just troll us all day long. You can moderate comments, right? But the idea of creating engagement on your website around a topic, around your content, don't be afraid of it. Embrace it. Maybe you're going to hear some things you don't want to hear, and maybe that's good for your organization. Maybe you'll hear a lot of positive things, and that will glow, and that whole conversation could go viral within your industry. Okay, let's not think about clamping everything down or making it members only. Let's open up some of those engagement points. And of course, speaking of members only, let's talk about this content. Should it be behind the wall or not? Okay, number 7, context is queen. Some people say you could Google context is king and you're going to get a lot of stuff there because some people think context over content. I think they're very, very, very close. You can make that distinction. I could do a whole hour on context alone. But what is context? Well, the definition says something like the circumstances that form the setting for an event in terms of which it can be understood and assessed. Well, okay. How about it's the surroundings of this thing? So it's the words around the words that make the words mean something. In the world of the web, and we're thinking about our users, it could be what time of day it is. It could be where they're accessing this information at an event. It could be on what device. Okay, those are contextual elements as well. So timeliness and relevance, as we said. When are they getting it? Some people save their email newsletters till the weekend and read them all then. There's also some data that says tweeting over the weekends, even for businesses, can be quite engaging because that's when a lot of people just go out there and mess around while they're watching the game on a Sunday. And then they check up their Twitter. So timeliness, relevance, contextual. And not only do users have unique needs, but they have some serious expectations, right, based on what they get from other users. I mean, like Amazon, oh, okay, Mashable, Zappos. I mean, these create expectations around service and personalization and usability that we need to live up to. Our members are on those sites, and they come to yours. They have a similar expectation. Okay, and as a side note, the handout for this section is robust and has some nice reference points to it as well. So that's something to look forward to. So context. What do we want to do? Well, we're going to look at the bigger picture in a moment. Differentiate content based on context. We talked about that. There's different contextual layers too, as I was sort of hinting at. There's device, there's individual, there's a social layer, there's an environmental layer. Okay. So let's back this out and personalize. Okay, and we'll talk more about that. It's going to be one of our upcoming secrets here. Okay. So if we back this out to the big picture, context is part of a bigger thing. Okay, because we just talked about it, content and the users. These are all intertwined. They're interdependent. And if you could draw an arrow to point right into the middle section where these three intersect, that would be where your content strategy needs to hit, isn't it? Right there in that sweet spot. So context, what are the surroundings, the goal of the device? User, what's that audience profile we talked about? What are they trying to achieve? What are their actions? What's the experience like for them? And then, of course, their content. What is it? Here's a great example. ASTS. On the left is their tablet, view, the responsive web design. Is responsive web design a contextual experience? Yeah, because it's by the device. It changes your site by the device. But on the right, that's the mobile version. And see how different it looks? Well, why did that happen? Well, if you see right in the middle of the tablet version, it says Academic Universe. That's the learning portion of the transplant surgeon's website. We're hoping the transplant surgeons are not watching instructional videos on their phone, right? So we know they're not doing that, so why offer it on the phone? Why not say, what are they doing on the phone? Well, they want to read the journal when they're online somewhere, find out an event because they're on the move, or they're at the event or heading to the event. So you see how that changes? We know when the transplant surgeons are on their mobile, they're in a different place and looking for different things than when they're on their tablet or their desktop. So number 8, personalize it. And why? Okay, well, it creates a vastly improved engagement for all of us that use Amazon, right? We know that. It helps you understand what you do and don't really know about your users. So how can we offer some content and learn if people are taking that content and running with it or not? Are they interested in what we just personalized for them or not? What speaks to them? Okay, and personalization just isn't for those that are logged in. It's not just for members. Okay, and I'll explain that in just a moment. So how can we personalize it? Let me do it like this. There's 3 types of personalization, and we need to keep those in mind, and I'm going to talk about those next. But also leverage CMS personalization features. Okay, many CMSs have features that allow you to personalize, even if it's something as simple as this person's logged in, and that's all we know. It's just a yes or no, on or off. But you should be able to show or hide content based on that person's logged in status. Okay, that's the most basic personalization you could do, show or hide based on login status. And when it comes to personalization, again, a whole nother webinar in and of itself, you want to start small. Okay, anyone that convinces you need to have 15 use cases and optimize for this and personalize for that and spreadsheet here, spreadsheet there, that's going to be overwhelming. Okay, generally, we recommend people launch their website first, figure out what works, run some usability tests, and then start thinking about how you can layer personalization into it. So that's really how we recommend that. So what is personalization? Why are there 3 types? Well, the first type of personalization is this. Again, this would be driven out of functionality in your content management system. And that is to say, we can personalize information based on where in the world you're at, what time of the day it is, what browser you're using, where on our website you were previously. Okay, true personalization. Then there's called the sort of custom personalization or customized. That's the my area, my org area. Check these boxes and tell us what you like, and we'll deliver that content to you. And then there's AMS driven, which is in line with what I was talking about before, but we could take it to a higher degree. Once someone logs in, well, I know that they went to the last 2 events and aren't registered for this one. Hi, Bob. It looks like you went to the last 2 events. You didn't register for this one yet. Early bird ends tomorrow. Click here. Okay, AMS driven. Here's a couple quick examples from clients. STTI again in the upper right, if you want to get your bearings on what site this was. Well, feedback from their members said, this is an international organization. This feels a little American to us. Okay, so what did they do? Imagery, of course, important. They culturalized, if you will, the homepage based on where in the world someone might be viewing their site. Pretty slick. Similarly, IAPA, you see the circle in the lower right-hand corner. Based on what part of the world you're in, that slider will open and close and show you the information based on your region. Let's talk about number 9, goals. Well, shouldn't we start with the goals? Yeah, maybe. But let's talk about what goals are, and I'll explain why we put them here. Well, they frame up our purpose. We have all these other things in mind. And another question we have to ask about our content, right? What's the goal of this? You can't measure it, right? You can't manage it if you don't measure it. And it will help you remember as you document why you did what you did when you did it. So again, let's not gloss over what's important, which is, why are we doing this in the first place? And these should map up to your organizational goals. We see quite often a silo of website goals, and the organization's over here and the website's over here trying to do something. I think we've come a long way over the past 5 or 10 years in that regard, but make sure that you're mapping to the organizational goals, okay? Set up your CMS, set up your Google Analytics, set up social sharing with metrics so that you can manage it. And as we said, review these very regularly so that you can track how things go. All right, so let's recap. Know your audience. Critical. Don't make that rookie mistake. Do less and then do more. Kill the killer content? Maybe. Think about conversion. So critical. What action does someone need to take against this? And let's give them the path to get there. Make it multi-purpose. Let's just not broadcast. Let's make each channel worthy of the content it's going across. Let's slice this content into 5 different pieces. That helps us be creative and helps us create engagement. Context is queen or king. We want to personalize, and of course, goals as we stated. Now, I want to give you the slide too that's going to show you the link to go to. I want to mention one thing though, that we do have an upcoming webinar in July, and we'll give you the link on the page as well if you want to sign up for it. The only reason I'm sort of mentioning it now is because it really is sort of a bookend to this one. So these are the secrets. These are the things you should take with you and consider when you're doing content. But what the next webinar is going to be, we call it the non-negotiable 7-step process to content for your association website, okay? This can be systematized. There is a process to say, before I publish this content, here's step 1. Oh yeah, that's goals, right? That would make more sense in the process. Let's look at our goals, number 1, right? And we walk through the 7 steps. So that's what that webinar is going to be about. It's also going to be a short 30-second webinar, that would be short, a short 30-minute webinar as well coming up in July. So hopefully you'll get a chance to sign up for that. So here's the information. It's in the box right above my picture, vtcus.com/webinars. You can go there and you can download the resources, sign up for that webinar, or reach out and contact us. That's on our website any way you'd like to. But with that, I would like to thank everybody for attending this webinar. Really appreciate having you all on it. I hope you found it valuable. And again, email me or respond in the Q&A as to how you liked this format of 30 minutes. And we came in pretty close. So thanks again, and we hope to see you all real soon.